Welcome back to the bench, everybody. I am Ridgen. I run Monkey RC, and if you're watching right now, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate everybody who's liked and subscribed to my YouTube page. Over this next season, once the snow thaws and we can get some more shots, I'm going to go through some new rigs I have, some other things that I'm building, and some awesome locations. I just want to give a huge shout out to the Micro Crawler Club here in Utah. They've showed me a lot of things, taught me a lot of things, and they're just some really great guys. So if you're in Utah and you want a great organization to look into for events, competitions, things like that, Micro Crawler Club, they're on Facebook. They're a great group of guys. Goop. But, so, without further ado, I wanted to show you something that I just got, and I'm pretty excited about it. It is the new CR18P Evo Pro by Hobby Plus. Now, Hobby Plus is, I'm not crazy too familiar with all their products. I've been wanting one of their Unimogs for a while now, and I'm still going to get one. It's just coming down the line. I just saw this guy just get released, and I had to have one. So I jumped on the pre-order list, and I was able to pick one up before they went into back order through Heli Direct, and yeah. So right out of the box, there's a couple things. I'm not one to leave things too stock. I like to build. I like to I watch it do a line. I'm like, okay, how can this be better? How can this articulate better? Does it need to articulate better? Weight, yada yada yada. So this one, I've only done a couple things to it for a couple reasons. One, my FMS, I've dumped a lot into it, and it feels like I'm kind of chasing problems with it. So I wanted to kind of take it really slow with this one. And it's a new release, so there's not a lot of aftermarket parts for it yet. Although I will say most of the CR18P parts from like the Unimog and the Rock Fan and stuff, it does work in this. I'm just taking it at a nice easy pace. We'll see what happens. As more competitions come up and I watch it actually do some serious work, I'll kind of assess what needs to happen, if anything needs to change, if anything needs to be added. So I'm going to cut the camera really quick and we'll switch over to the bench so I can kind of walk you through it. All right, 1 second. All right, guys, welcome. Okay, so here we got it. The new CR18P Evo Pro. Now my camera is clamped to the table, so it's definitely got a little shake to it. I'll try not to rattle it too much. Now, as you can probably tell, if you've seen these before, there's a couple things I've changed right out of the gate. First thing is I personally removed the stock graphics on it. I did that just for aesthetic and also because, you know, I wanted mine to look a little different, don't we all? A couple other things you'll notice right off the bat is I changed the tires on this. Now, the stock tires that come with this are on a 1.2 plastic beadlock. The tires on it I'm in love with. I think that they are fantastic tires. But currently how we sit right now with current rules in the Micro Crawler Club and stuff, in order for me to stay in a certain class, I have to be on 1.0 wheels. Now, I've already been talking to a couple of the admins, and they're discussing maybe changing that to where it won't be an issue. But for right now, so I can fix the situation, I went with a 1.0 wheel. And the tallest, some tall tires that are 1 inch, 1.0, and I went with the Pro Line Maxxis Trepadors. And if I believe these are also a newer release. And also on top of that, I put brass wheels because this low weight is something that really makes a difference. Really, really does. I want to find a brass wheel. They do make them that are 1.2 that will give me the weight, and I can go back to stock tires. The difference is you can get a good quality brass wheel, say off Amazon or something, for around $25 for a set. And the second you jump into 1.2, the price jumps up too. And all of us, for the most part, are on a budget, and we want to make awesome rigs without breaking the bank. So this is what this combination I decided to go with. Another thing about these brass wheels is they are not deep dish, meaning that this hub and everything is set more inside the wheel. So this pops out more. And the reason why I wanted a more shallower dish wheel is because, well, first of all, it's already really wide. I'll show you here in a second when I take the tire off, but their stock hexes on here, they're wide. I can't find a replacement for them currently as it sits that are that wide, that are brass or anything. So with wide comes a couple things. You know, the wider the rig, the less it has to tip. So when you're side hilling, you know, the less your rig will tend to go over. But a downfall of being wider is a couple things. One, in competition, the width of the gates can definitely affect and can be hit a lot easier with a wider rig. Another thing is your turning radius. So the wider these are, the further away from the rig, the more turning radius you lose. So all in all, from stock, this is pretty much still the same because the plastic bead locks were a little deeper. So I didn't really lose too much of my width, so it still has great side hill action. And with the heavier wheels, it plants it a lot better. Okay. Something else I've done to it, which I'm not going to recommend you guys cut into your stuff, but the power button to turn this thing on is right behind this rear window. So instead of having to remove these little clips every time, I just cut a little slot right there to get my finger in to switch it on and off. So I feel like that has made a big difference in my time management and just taking the body on and off, on and off. If you do want to, if you don't want to cut the back window and everything, what you can do, and this is what I did with mine, I'll show you right here, is I took some small, very small zip ties, just like this. I cut them to length. I bent them over, just like that. See that? I fed them through the eyelet of the clip, and then cut them, took a lighter, got it nice and hot, pinched it together. All right? So now, instead of trying to get my finger around everything, I can now have a nice little, as you can see, a nice little grab spot. So I feel like that's also a really good thing if you don't want to cut into the back window and you want to access the body a lot more than I'll need to. All right, so that being said, I will go ahead and remove the body so I can kind of show you some things that are going on here. So my version that came there's a brushless version for a little over $200. I just went with the brush version. I like brushed, especially in minis. I don't really feel like the necessity to go brushless. If that's the route you want to go, it's great. Don't let me sway you either way. Personally, for me, motors are cheaper, parts are cheaper, and yeah, I'm completely fine running this brushed. They did a really big can motor in this. It's a 280 58 turn, and this thing rips. It's 2-speed, so you've got a shift servo right here. So on the remote, let me grab it out for you. I can show you. On the remote right here, you can switch between your speeds. All right. Another thing about this, since I've got this out, I'm going to show you a couple things. So right here, you've got your reverses. You know, if you want to reverse things, depending on your preference. I personally like it the normal way. Up here on these dials right here, I don't know if I just got a faulty manual, but the manual that came with this had no description of what these and their functions do. Okay, so I will tell you, the first one is to select between LiPo and nickel. The second one is, wow, I messed this up. The first one, because I don't have the manual to refer to, I have to go off memory. The first one is to select your drive mode, meaning that when you pull the trigger, if you pull it back, that's forward. Push it forward is reverse, and anything in the middle is brake. If you switch this down, it changes the drive mode to where you pull the trigger, go forward, and then you have to do, it's called a brake system. You stop, you have to push this forward once to get out of brake, and then push it again to go reverse. Some people like that mode. I'm not crazy about it, so I just kept it in standard forward reverse, with brake being everything in the middle. The second one is your battery type, and that up is nickel and down is lipo. We're running the lipo, the stock lipo that's in it. And then these two over here correlate with your drag brake. Now, if you don't know what drag brake is when you are going up or down a hill, what the ESC is being told is when you let off the brake, when you let off the trigger, if you want only 50% drag brake, let's just say, what would happen is it would slow, but it would keep on rolling if it's steep enough, all right? Most of us crawler guys, when we want to stop, we want to stop. So to switch both of these up puts it at 100% drag brake, all right? Which is what I have it set at. I like it. But keep in mind, when you do have 100% drag brake, if you are on a steep enough incline, when it stops, it will stop. So if you have too much momentum, and if you don't learn how to feather the trigger to slow it more to a stop, it has the opportunity to kick forward, because it is just stop, and the motion will just take it forward. So just keep that in mind. Another thing about this is your dual rates. So I've had some questions from some newer guys about what's the difference between a trim and a dual rate. So trim is where you want it to be. So like this to say on your steering, if your steering was a little, let's just say cocked a little to the side when you're going forward and you're not touching anything, it's just like this and you're going, what you want to do is you would adjust your steering trim to get it back to where you want it. Back to a nice rolling straightforward. Same thing with your throttle trim. If you adjust your throttle trim, it's going to set the start point forward or back to where if you took it all the way up, it's just going to start rolling on its own, right? And vice versa if you take it all the way back. So as far as throttle trim, I don't really mess with it too much, so I keep it right in the middle. I'm happy with it. Now, dual rates are going to set is another way of saying your endpoints. If you ever hear that, set your endpoints. What that means is, so like on the steering dual rate, I'll plug this battery in for you. Okay, yep, it's in. All right. Let's see. So if you set your dual rate all the way up, you're going to get the max amount of steer. Now, if you take your dual rate down, see, it barely even wants to move, okay? So you're pretty much telling it how much steer you want. But keep in mind, the quickest way to blow a servo and to ruin it is if your car can only turn this much and you're telling it to turn this much, meaning you're taking it past its capacity, it's going to force itself against all your steering linkage, your axles and everything. And it's just a quicker way to burn servos up. So mess with it and really, really watch where the axle wants to stop. If you ever notice that you're turning and then the whole servo and the tray and everything is trying to lift and forcing itself, well, then you're going to do damage to your servo a lot quicker than needs to be. Okay, and even the micro servos can get expensive if you keep burning them up, especially if you go with quality ones. Now, as far as the throttle dual rate, I have mine to where it is pretty sensitive. It's about in the middle. But you can turn this thing down to where you're pulling before it's activating. Does that make sense? So it's all up in, if you feel like you're pretty jumpy on the trigger, if you're getting used to it stuff, you can turn your dual rate down so you kind of have a little bit more play. So maybe especially if you got like your kids playing with it and stuff like that, and you don't want them to put it into a wall so quick or, ram it into things, you can mess with the throttle dual rate and it does pretty good. It also has a channel 4 if you want to add lights. This is the same ESC that is in the FMS 18, which is what I've got right here. And on mine, that button controls lights and the functions that they have. So eventually, if you did want to run lights, you could. It does have that ability. Me personally, I usually disconnect my lights because it takes more battery. And personally, I don't really use lights too much. I don't do too much scale runs. Sometimes I will, but that's just as easy to... I got one of my hairs in here. Look at that. It's the joy of having long hair. It gets everywhere. So yeah, that's just kind of a little bit about the remote and how it responds with this. So another thing I noticed on here, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but the amount of power that your servo can put to the wheels is important. And when you start adding heavier wheels, if you start doing portal covers, if you start adding more brass to this thing, the stock servo is not gonna have the juice to be able to turn that. And lo and behold, you'll end up burning it up. Now, I jumped ahead of the game a little bit because I happened to be at West Valley Hobbies and I saw this Savic servo, and the model number is SW-0267. It is a 6 kg, meaning it's got 6 kilograms of turning power, which is plenty compared to, I believe, it was only 1 or 2 on the stock servo. So this is a big jump in power for it. It's waterproof. I think it's a great servo so far. I've never used a Savic servo before, so we'll put it through its paces and I'll update you as it goes along. The Savic servo came with a very, very long cable. And if you're new to running cables, if I could give you a little tip, and I've learned this from a couple guys, is you just grab yourself something small. You could use this, which is what I used. And what you want to do is you want to take that wire that's going to be, like that long. And what you want to do is you want to wrap it tight around some kind of cylinder or something like that. Pencil would work, pen, whatever you want. This is just what I had. And what you want to do is you want to take a lighter. You could use a heat gun if you want, but all I do, without burning the wires, and that's keep the heat moving, is you just move this lighter, get it all the way around, get that wire nice and warm, right? Nice and hot. Let it go, let it cool off, and then when you pull it off, it's nice and pigtailed, just like this, okay? And what that's going to do is that's going to save you all the space of having some big, huge cable. That's the battery cable. I'm not too worried about it, but trying to find spots to jam it, all right? So that's another little tip I have for when you're running servo wires, motor wires, battery wires, things like that. It does help with the space saving. Now, what else have I done to this? So I've done new servo. I've had a couple people ask me because the stock linkage, which I do have right here, is a plastic linkage, and it runs on the one side, it's dual ball where they snap on with the screw. And this is great, honestly. This will, for the most part, steering linkages won't usually break on you. I mean, unless you're really, really cranking on this into tight spots, it'll probably more likely bend. But I used, and again, a lot of people ask me, I don't remember if it was off my FMS 118 or my TRX 4M, but I had a spare set of linkage, steering linkage, and it's nice thick steel. So I put that on with an aluminum servo horn to do a couple things. One is it's just a little stronger. Look at this hair. I'm telling you, I'm a woolly mammoth. But it also adds a bit more weight in the front, and that's what you want. So many people will discuss and they even have special scales that'll tell you, oh, percentages of where the weight's at. I look at it like this. If I could put my finger right up in the middle, I want this to want to tip forward. All right? And the reason why is because when this is going up a hill, if there's more weight in the back, when these bite, it's going to flip it over. Okay? So more weight in the front is going to keep the front planted, so when it finally peaks over something, it can pull itself up a lot easier. Now, that's a simple explanation of the motions and everything that's going on. There's also talk of overdrive, and I could talk about that another time. But more or less, you want to have more weight sitting in the front. Hence, also with these, it's a low center of gravity chassis, the motor sitting up front, everything like that is to push this weight more forward, okay? If you have any more questions about weight, overdrive, and things like that, feel free to ask me in the comments and stuff. Plus, there's a ton of videos on ratios. If you do end up getting special scales and everything of like, what's the golden ratio? 60% in the front, 40% in the rear, yada, yada, yada. Now, so I did a new servo, did linkage, I did brass wheels. I think that's pretty much it as far as what I've done so far. I have not torn to the transmission. If it is a transmission, which it looks almost identical, if not the same as the one in the FCX, they are plastic gears, but I have not looked in there to confirm this or not with this one. It might be metal gears. One thing I did notice about this, and if you have a TRX4M, you will notice this as well, is that all of the spinning parts are sitting on bushings. And what a bushing is it's pretty much, let's see if I can make a crude, here I'll use a spring as an example. So what a bushing is it's a metal piece, soft metal piece, that all the rotating parts are sitting in. Okay, and that works great if you got a TRX4M. Many people run their TRX4Ms with bushings. I will eventually switch over to bearings. There's a few companies that make bearing kits for them. Fast Eddie is another one. That's probably going to be the one I put in here, and it's for the CR18P Evo Unimog. So everything should fit in here, no problem. Okay, so as far as everything else, as far as what I think of the truck, I love it. I think it's fantastic. They really knocked it out of the park with this. There's a couple things. One, it's got a low center of gravity chassis, or you'll see it listed as LCG. It's got multi-points to mount your shocks, and that's very important because where you mount your shocks can make a big difference on its flex, on its performance, on its unloading, everything like that. And how I have it set up right now, I don't think I'm going to do limit straps on it, meaning to keep the front end down, because when you're going up on a hill, you'll notice maybe in your own rig or something, as you get to a certain point, that shock is going to push the body away, and that could be in the difference between tipping back over or staying on the trail. So what a lot of guys, especially in the Microcrawler Club, I've seen them do it a lot. It's a great idea is they use rubber bands around the shock towers in the front to keep that planted down so that unload doesn't happen. I personally, I'll show you on my FMS right here. What I do is I have a little bungee strap. I actually took it off of a face mask, a little N95 face mask. And I've got it mounted up into the front bumper and also on the spare slot on the servo horn. And what that does is it keeps this from unloading. Now as you can see, if I force it, you see how much unload happens there, but this keeps it nice and tucked in. And personally for me, to keep the strap in the center allows more side flex, but still keeps this planted up. So I don't think I'll have to do it with this new one. We'll see. Another thing about this is it's got big bore shocks, which means it's just a bigger cylinder and everything. They are oil filled. From the rumors I heard about this, about there barely being any oil in it, I can confirm that is true. There is barely a few drops in this of shock oil in here. So I would recommend if you do get this, get yourself a good quality shock oil. And there's plenty of videos on how to fill shocks and everything like that. I won't go too far into it. But I went with, let's see here, what did I use? I used TLR, Team Losi, and I went with 30 weight. Okay. Again, there's plenty of discussions. The thicker the oil, the slower the action. Thinner the oil, quicker the action. That's up for debate, but I think 30 weights are just a great all around, especially for a small rig like this. I'm going to be doing some more videos. Right now it is snowing like crazy, and it looks like it's going to be snowing most of this week, so I won't be able to cut to some awesome clips of it climbing and doing all this stuff yet. But once we have some thought out ground, I am going out to the backyard course, and I'm going to get some awesome shots with this. I'll probably even invite a couple of guys from the Microcrawler Club to come over and run some of their rigs side by side. They also have one of these that they received from Hobby Plus. And yeah, maybe we'll get a couple different shots of it. My dad, who's getting new into the hobby with me, he just picked one up too. And he's actually the one, because he does RC planes, he's actually the one who showed me this trick right here on the back. But he's a tinkerer like that, and then, man's a genius. Everything he does, I'm like, why didn't I think of that? So, yeah. So as far as it goes right now, I am really impressed with this rig. I got nothing really negative to say about it. It does have, I mean, for all you guys who are into crawling competitions and are really down to the finite details, it does have what I like to call roll slop. Most cars with portal axles and stuff like that have it, but what that means is if I pull this all the way back to where it can free spin, right? You see that? Before it catches on all the gearing, the transmission differentials, all this stuff, ring and pinion and stuff. So this one's not too bad, but I will tell you, I have done this already on this rig, which was where I came over the top of something and I wanted to stop because it was getting steep, and it rolled forward and tipped. Now, it's kind of an isolated incident, but when you do get roll slop, all of them have it, don't get me wrong. Most cars have them, and it can be fixed with certain changes in parts and things like that, tighter, greasing things better, blah, 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 blah. But that is also something I noticed about this one. But this is really me picking at it, really picking at it. It's not a huge thing, but that can get a little in your way on some of the climbs you do or the descents you do. So keep that in mind. I think Hobby Plus really did a great job. As far as more upgrades coming, I'm still on the fence so far. I really need to run this more. Brass portal covers, maybe. I might try some different positions on the shock mounts and see where everything lands. I might go a little bigger battery for more run time. But all in all, guys, I think that you will be super happy with this. As far as ready to runs, I can't think of a better one right out of the box. Except for their Unimog, which is another great rig. But yeah, if you have any questions on this, or if you've got one and you have any questions you want to ask me about it, or things you want to see me do with it, just comment or personally message me on my Facebook for Monkey RC. I would be more than happy to answer anything you can. All right? Big shout out to the Microcrawler Club. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate all the help you've given me over this last year. And I look forward to more events, more things, all the above. All right? Well, I hope you guys have a great day. It is Tuesday, so I hope your Tuesday's awesome. If you're at work, if you're at home, whatever you're doing. And yeah. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you like what you've seen. I got plenty of videos, different scales, different sizes of rigs I've got, and I cannot wait to make more. Yeah, I'm really excited. Well, you guys have a good day, all right?